Grand Blue looks like, when I watch the game in person, it looks fantastic. The game looks cool. I'm very interested in trying it. I would have known the characters better if it's Fate than Final Fantasy Grand Blue versus whatever it is. I don't know who Gran is or Blue or any of the other characters, but you know, whatever. Yeah, there is a Fate game. It's quite old now though. That was like a PS2 or PS3 game, right? Say it, coward. He just wants me to say fuck. But the thing is that I say fuck every other sentence. Is the Fate game fuck? Yes. When people come to my stream or they watch my YouTube, they always say stuff like, man, you know, when I watch you on commentary, you don't sound like this. But when I watch you on your stream or on your YouTube, you sound so degenerate. I'm like, well, yeah. Like at home, you can say whatever you want, but then you go to work and your boss is there and you're like, hey, what up, motherfucker? Like, you can't just do that, you know? Well, maybe you can. It depends on where you work, whether you can call your boss a dumb bitch or not. Did I ever take any public speaking classes? No. Nothing like that. It really is just something that is a skill that's buildable that you get over time, right? You know, the only public speaking I really ever had before I started YouTube or Twitch or anything like that was doing presentations in class. Is there really anything else that I did? I honestly don't know. That was probably the only other time I really did any public speaking. You start doing YouTube, and then obviously on YouTube and Twitch and stuff, it's lots and lots of practice. Did I like doing presentations? Yes and no. I like the presenting portion of it, but this is the problem that I always had when group presentations happen. Is that I was always the person that would be elected to do the busy work. Like, they're like, hey, we need the research done, we need this done, we need that done. Can you do it? And I'm like, okay, well, I could. However, I would like to do the presentation because that's the part that I'm better than you at, right? I'm like, let me do the presentation portion, you do the research. And what would end up happening is the research would be bad or they wouldn't do it or something. And so it would end up with me doing the research and me doing the presenting. I'll never forget one time I had to do all of the research for something. And like the night before or something of this big group project we had in like our AP English class, I got like a phone call or a text. I don't remember which. That was like essentially saying, hey, the person who's presenting tomorrow is not prepared to take the material that you researched and turn it into a presentation because they have to do, you know, some banquet or they have some other thing for some class so they can't get ready and do it. And I was like, bro, I've got fucking wrestling practice. I've got this. I've got all these other classes and shit. I don't care. I didn't have time when I did all the research and everything for this portion of it. I don't give a fuck if you don't have time now. Just do it. And I remember on the call being like, why can't she do it? Like, just tell her to do it. She's like, no, she's just really busy. I'm kind of mad at her too. And I remember saying, well, tell her she's a stupid bitch and just do the presentation and it'll be fine. And I hung up. And the next day, I knew that word had gotten to her what I said because I remember locking eyes with her and she looked so mad at me. And I felt no remorse because I was like, we agreed at the beginning of this to tally up the project in this way. You have your responsibilities. I don't care what happened. You have a job to do, right? That's the exact way I thought about it. And we got in there and she was like, I'm not ready to do the presentation or whatever. I don't know the assignments. And I was like, okay, well, go tell the teacher that. I was like, that's no problem. I'll do the presentation, but you go tell her that you're not doing it because, you know, fucking you weren't prepared or whatever. And you're willing to accept the trash grade because you didn't do shit in our goddamn group. I was so mad. I remember being so pissed about it, but it cheered me up seeing DJ Bustinut has gifted a sub to, all right, I don't want to get banned. I don't even know what that says. Erect battle nipples? Thanks very much. So anyway, I got up in front of the class and I did the presentation for our group on all the research. Am I a teacher's pet? No, I was not a teacher's pet, but I told her, hey man, you don't get credit for this fucking project. You go tell the teacher you didn't do shit, which didn't end up happening. I wanted it to be the case, but it didn't end up happening because obviously no one walks up and is like, I didn't do anything. I remember she ran for class president and I voted against her because of it. I was like, nope, you didn't do fucking my class project that we were on together. Hell no, I'm not voting for you. Easiest decision of my life. I was like, you clearly don't have the responsibility to handle this position, which probably actually has no responsibility or work at all. So I will clearly not vote for you. I don't know what she ended up doing now. I hold no grudges. I just know that at the time I held the grudge. Oh, you want to see professional public speaking?
D here with more Deserto coverage at DreamHack Atlanta 2019. I'm joined with my good...
Look at that hard blink. That blink is the mind resetting.
Buddies, and one of the most controversial figures...
Look at the way the The smile.
I'm joined with my good buddies and one of the most
The smile. Whew. Professional. That's a professional right there. Well, it's a pre-recorded interview, right? So you could have restarted that thing. It's not a big deal. But that was a beautiful transition. I got to tell you. That's a true professional right there. Anyway, somebody was asking about public speaking advice and said, if someone is not as naturally talented at public speaking, should they look into getting classes? Should they look into anything like that? I think obviously those things could help you. What I'll say about public speaking is I don't think that I was naturally talented at public speaking necessarily. I enjoyed it. I didn't have a fear of it or anything. The reason I got good at it was, it's going to shock you, a surprising and ridiculous amount of hours in practice. When I started doing YouTube, I wasn't a fantastic public speaker. I was somebody who was interested in it, and I didn't have fears of it or phobias of it, but I wasn't practiced or anything. So I started doing lots of YouTube, and I started doing lots of Twitch. And at this point, I've got to have, 10,000 hours of public speaking at the very minimum or something. It's some absurd amount of practice doing public speaking between all my streams, between YouTube and everything. Like, I don't know. I can probably look up how many hours I've streamed total on Twitch. I'm sure that there's hundreds and thousands of hours that other people will tell you that they put into it too. And it's one of those things you just have to practice, right? That's just kind of how it works. I mean, charisma helps, but part of stuff that you learn is inflecting and like how to be natural. I think that there's a phase everybody goes through when they learn public speaking where people will get a little too formal. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people have that problem where when they go into public speaking, they're in public speaking mode. Hello, everybody, and I'd like to tell you that I'm here with Dr. MN Love, who dropped the big tier 1 subscription on Twitch TV. They have like this voice, this like delivery that is very practice sounding when they're public speaking, but it's not very natural sounding. There's a lot of different things that I've worked on since the first time I ever commentated. When I first started, I was definitely very flat. So I didn't have a lot of like peaks in my inflection or anything like that. I was very flat, and I knew a lot about the games, but I didn't really explain it in a way that was like super well thought out. So it's super flatlined and very like kind of like, okay, well, this is it. Then, those things I had to turn into a bunch of different improvements over time to get better at. I mean, even I've talked in the last few years, right, where in like 2017, I worked on really building up and being a more excitable commentator. In 2018, I really wanted to work on focusing and minimizing and condensing analysis and stuff like that. There's always different things that you can work on in not only my commentary, but public speaking in general to improve yourself. It's just one little portion at a time you work on. And that's how learning is, right? I have all these different skills and abilities and stuff, and you just grab them and you start to put them all together into a skill. Skill building takes lots of different little things that you can get at a time, little victories that you can add into one thing, and then you've got yourself whatever skill you're interested in learning in. For instance, if you listen to Vicious this year compared to last year, Vicious last year, he sounded very like robotic, I think, in a lot of his delivery. If you listen to him this year, he sounds way more natural, way more loose, a lot of energy there that was always kind of around, but he kind of held it in, you know what I mean? Like Jeremy he's super energetic and super funny and personable, but he wasn't very good, I should say, at demonstrating that, I think, in like a year ago or 2 years ago. He's a little too buttoned up when he was on commentary. I think a lot of people don't realize that. He's always been a goober. He's been doing commentary for a long time, and I mean, he did Capcom Cup in 2016, I think the very first year, but he's been doing commentary for years and years and years. And he's definitely gotten a lot better this year in particular at really bringing out his personality. See, I never used to really notice Vicious, but I do now. I think that's what happens, right? Is like when someone's doing this practice sort of grading style of public speaking or commentary where it's a little too robotic, it's hard to really pick any part of it that you think is them. And now Jeremy, I think, has gotten a lot better at that for sure. He's much more of himself. Man, listening to sports commentary when I was at Thanksgiving dinner, I was like, man, there's so few of this that isn't like, it's them, it's a lot of it is, stats or, phrases that they just say over and over and over. You got to try to be yourself, and I think just relax a little bit. I think that goes a long way. Anyway, when it comes to public speaking, it's one of those things that you sort of just have to practice like everything else. I've talked a lot about how to learn before, and those videos apply to public speaking as well, right? Learning any skill is a lot about just sitting there and being like, okay, I want to learn this skill and I'm going to try it. And you take little tiny things about learning that skill and you bring it back into you, right? Okay, I did this thing really well, so I'm going to take that. And I did this thing really really well. I'm going to take that and, okay, well, I was kind of bad at this, so I'm going to, work on that. And you just got to keep practicing over and over until you can thank Ryseal for dropping the big Twitch Prime for 2 months. Thanks very much. Without having to sit there and think, oh, what am I supposed to say next? Am I going to, am I going to this? Am I going to that? Another interesting thing somebody asked me is, am I more comfortable doing stuff like improv off the top of my head, or am I more comfortable when I'm rehearsed? I think when I used to do YouTube, I was much better much better at doing things when I had a plan first. But after doing tons of different events and doing lots of live stuff, there is no second takes on anything you do. You just have to sort of sit there and be like, well, I'm going to do it live and I can only memorize so much. And I sort of just have to improv a lot of what's going to be in the middle. And I think now I'm very comfortable doing that compared to stuff where I have to memorize a ton of things. I think I can do both, but before I think I was only good at memorizing, and then doing stuff live with improv is a little harder. I think if you teach yourself how to learn when you're younger, then your whole life you'll understand how to learn. I think you should just you should practice it. The learning method, you should just keep practicing it. It's why I think you should try to pick up something new all the time. Constantly trying to learn something new, some new skill or technique or something like that, or focusing on learning something and improving will keep you kind of sharp, right? It reminds you of what the learning process is like.